Welcome to part 2 of how to revise your book. The first part, we talked about the 3 main things you've got to look for. And in part 2, we're going to delve a little deeper into how to revise that and how to take it to the next level. So what I said in part 1 was that every scene needs to have a goal, motivation, and conflict for the point of view character. And I dived in deep on why in the first video. So check that out here. Once you know what that character's goal, motivation, and conflict is for the scene, you got to work in the emotion, because emotion is what connects readers. Emotion is what makes readers talk about your characters. Emotion is what makes readers think these characters have come to life on the page. And building that is not an easy task, because it means getting deep inside yourself and touching on all of these emotions and anxieties and insecurities that none of us really like to talk about, and bringing that commonality to the reader. Now, do you have to take your exact history and put it on the page with the character? Absolutely not. But you need to bring along the common themes that we all can relate to. Fear of abandonment, fear of loss, having your heart broken, all of those things that we all go through that we can all relate to. So your character would probably have a totally different journey from what you did, but they're going to have some of the same core anxieties, fears, and insecurities and doubts that everybody else has and you have. And you got to learn how to tap into that. So how do you do that? First, I want you to go back and see if you really delved in deep enough with your character. Look at your main character or characters, depending on how many protagonists you have. The protagonist is the main character in the book. So go back to the main character that you have, and I want you to look at the deep emotional wounds that that character has. If you don't know what that is or how to do that, I have a video right here, and I have a free handout right down in the description that gives you a character master plan that you can use in order to figure these out. What the deep emotional wound is basically the traumas that happened to your character in the past. It can be something hugely traumatic, like seeing your parents killed in front of you, which is Batman, or it can be something that's not super traumatic but feels that way to the character, like having your heart broken by your first love, or something much deeper, like the character being yanked out of his family home and put into foster care. There's a whole bunch of levels in between there, and people have asked me, do I have to have a really scarring trauma? You don't, but everything that we go through that leaves an imprint on us does leave us with an anxiety, insecurity, fear, or doubt. It's just a fact of life. When something happens to us that makes us hurt or makes us feel vulnerable or scares us, it's going to leave a little bit of a scar. And knowing what that scar is helps you understand how your character will react and what kind of an emotional journey they need to go on. If your character was abandoned by their parents, then they're going to have to learn to overcome their fear of abandonment and get close to other people. If they've been hurt a lot by other people, like Shrek, and I use him a lot for an example because it's a very linear movie and it's very clear why Shrek is the way he is. He's been hurt a lot by people, and he has to get over his avoidance of people and his fear of being hurt in order to get Fiona and have friends at the end. And you can see that in every single scene in the movie, that Shrek kind of inches towards getting over that fear of being hurt. So once you know that, I want you to go through all the scenes in that character's point of view, and I want you to ask yourself, did they have to address one of their emotional fears here? Did they have to overcome it in some way? And it does not have to be, and it shouldn't be, like this immediate light bulb goes on and they solve all their problems and they're better. Anybody who's been to therapy knows it is not an overnight solution, that everything that we go through takes time to work through. It takes baby steps of us taking a risk and failing, taking a risk and failing, taking a risk and succeeding. Don't eat that. That's what your character needs to do too. Try and fail, try and fail, try and succeed. And as they're doing that, the reader is like, yes, they can do it. Number 3 that I want you to look for is moments of hope and moments of despair. I've talked about this in another video on scenes. The reader needs to see that things are getting really bad for the character, but they also need to have hope that it could work out. So when you put those two in there, it gives the reader this roller coaster of, oh my gosh, it's getting really bad. Oh my gosh, it might work out. Oh my gosh. And they're constantly turning the pages. For instance, I'm reading a book right now called Quarry Girls. Now I'm only about a third of the way through, but there is a girl who has been kidnapped in the very first chapter, and that's one of the main characters. And then there is another girl that I suspect is going to be kidnapped. I've got moments of hope with the girl that's already been kidnapped because she's come up with a plan, but then I've got moments of despair when I'm reading about the girl that's going to be kidnapped because I can see the writing on the wall based on what happened to the first girl. So throughout the whole book, I'm just staying up till 2 a.m. reading because I really want to see how it works out for everybody. That's what you want to create. So as you're going through your scenes and you look for the goal, motivation, and conflict and the emotional development, look and mark where there are moments of hope and moments of despair for the character and for the reader. You want to have a sort of more or less even roller coaster. It doesn't have to be despair, hope, despair, hope. But it's got to have a nice wave to it, so that the reader is always having that anxiety about, will it work out? That's the tension that I talked about. When you have hope and despair on the page, it creates tension in the reader and they keep turning the pages. Now, if you want to know what else you need to do to revise your book, you're going to have to watch part 3. But in the meantime, watch this video about creating really powerful characters that come to life on the page.